is that? So we have Joe Avella back. That's all we need. And Catherine Signs. All righty. All right. Can I use this one? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Okay, back by popular demand. Rich Warfield. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Ron Strobel had to venture out to Minnesota for a couple weeks, so I'll be acting as your Lieutenant Rear Admiral. So thank you for coming. We got a light crowd, and we're going to be led by Mr. Phil Tobin this morning in our prayer. So take it, Phil.
Rotarians. If I could ask them to bring up the music, if you would, please. I've chosen over the past couple times when I've given the invocation to turn it into an opportunity for music. And we just went through the Memorial Day. We have a tribute, God Bless America, and it's sung by a very, very popular gospel male singer as God Bless America. His name is Whitney Phipps. Let's see if it cranks up. Technology is an issue here. Is it up? Oh, it's coming up.
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us pledge allegiance to the land that's free. Let us all be grateful for the land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you very much.
Phil,
God bless you. Good night.
Phil, thank you for sharing that with us. He sounds a lot like you do when you sing. Very refreshing to see that. And that lady with the tears coming up from her eyes, it's just very emotional. Oh, Catherine, welcome back from your Curacao home, I assume, right? And truly, it's nice to have people like John Adams and Joe Avella back from Florida. So our next person, if you'd like to come up, Keith, would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance? And the four-way test.
Well, that's one heck of an act to follow, so I'll try to do my best. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Number one, is it the truth? Two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Keith. Before our president comes up, I don't think I've seen Patrick here today, but we are shooting for not this weekend, but the following weekend for the pool cleanup. For anybody that might be interested in helping out, the pool house cleanup, that is, at Camp Manitou. So I will confirm that with Patrick, hopefully in an email, and let people know. Everybody's welcome to come. We usually have 7 or 8 people to do the pool house cleanup, and they feed us real well afterwards, right, Andy? So with that being said, Father, would you like to come up and lead us?
Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Hey, thank you, Phil, for that invocation this morning, which indeed was a prayer. It reminded me of, I immediately went back to my 5th grade class, Mrs. Henderson's 5th grade class at Simon Kenton Elementary School in Springfield, Ohio. And Mrs. Henderson used to make she would not make us, she would have these mimeographed patriotic songs, and she would have a time for singing once a week where we would sing patriotic songs. And she would also do things like this, like she would pull out the King James Bible and she said, I'm going to read you a passage. I just want you to catch the way that the rhythms of the language go. But God bless Mrs. Henderson. She would read us the Bible in school as well. Long past the time when that was, banished from the American landscape. So it was a great reminder this morning of those two things. This month we are gathering collections to support Hopewell House, a therapeutic community in Chagrin Falls that helps people with bipolar disease and also with other mental health challenges. And so they're looking for activity stuff and such as board games, drafting easel, spike board or spike ball, I think is what it is. Also cash donations. And so today is the last day if you want to help with that. Ben, where's Ben? Is he around here? I see him. There he is. You know, I was asked today, I send all money questions to you. I also am starting to send my, my regular money questions to you. But do you know, could they send money to us directly? Do they give it to Hopewell House directly? How do we do that? Yeah. Okay. Check with Terry. Okay. Check with Terry if you need to know that. All right. So I need help with something that we're having our end of the year. What do you call it? Changing of the guard banquet. Yes. Is celebration. Yeah. Whatever we want to call it. June the 28th. First of all, mark that on your calendars. Wednesday, June 28th in the evening. A location to be determined. If you're someone who's really good at logistics, maybe you could help me. So, let me know if you can do that. I'll be looking at my phone today for emails or text messages. People say, this is really my strong suit. So I'm all in on that. So if that is you, please do contact me as soon as you can. I have to leave early today because I have a funeral to officiate. I don't know if any of you knew Tom Good. Tom has been a member, member of the Hudson community for decades. Tom Good, and he passed away last week, and his funeral will be today. So, if you would remember me and the Good family in your prayers. Okay, with that, who is introducing our guest? Go.
It's good to have a good microphone, isn't it? That's an inside joke, Sharon. Hey, good morning. This morning, our speaker is remote. It is Sharon Graper. She is the current Director of Education at Holden Forest and Garden, which is comprised of the Holden Arboretum and the Cleveland Botanical Garden. For the past 28 years, she has been in charge of developing programs for over 25,000 school children as part of their school curriculum. She has also extensive experience in developing programs for educators, scout groups, families, and so on. Mrs. Graper is a graduate of Hawken School and the University of Virginia with a BA in ecology. She has a Bachelor of Science from Oregon State University in Science Education and an MED from the University of Delaware in Elementary Science Curriculum and Instructor Design. You see Sharon up there on the screen. Sharon, it's all yours, and thank you for coming.
Not a problem. Can you all hear me okay? Since I can't see you, I assume you can unless somebody says otherwise. So this is kind of strange for me because I'm used to being in person with people, but considering where I work at the Holden Arboretum and the Cleveland Botanical Garden, which is the combination is Holden Forest and Gardens, we like to refer to the month of May as mayhem, because once the plants start blooming, everybody comes out of the woodwork and it's a little difficult to get away to come be there in person. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself because as an educator, I think it's good to know who's speaking to you. And then I'm going to give you a little information about Holden Forest and Gardens. And I understand that this is a part of a series that has to do with summer fun. And there's a lot going on at both the Botanical Garden and the Arboretum. And then there'll be some time for questions. So hopefully this might be some information that you all know if you've visited either of our campuses. If you've been around Cleveland for a long time, hopefully we're not a hidden gem to you, but to some people we are. So, thanks for inviting me. So there was a lovely introduction. I have lived in Northeast Ohio since I was 5. My father actually was a Rotarian. He was a science teacher at Hawken, and then he became the head of the Andrews School. And so he still is involved in his retirement down in Florida with Rotary. So he would be, I'm sure, very happy that I'm spending my time speaking to you all today as well. My history with Holden Arboretum and the Cleveland Botanical Garden goes back a long, long way. So I get in my current job as the Director of Education to really share my passion that I developed at a very, very early age. I lived on the Hawken Upper School campus when I was 5 years old. If any of you have been to the Hawken Upper School campus, it's 400 acres of forest that I got to play in. My father was a science teacher, so he developed a love in me of plants and nature and being outside from a really, really early age. And probably my first experience with the Holden Arboretum was on a field trip in 3rd grade. So I came here never knowing that when I was a senior in high school at Hawken, I would do my senior project in the wildflower garden at the Holden Arboretum. So I got a great introduction to what was here when I was a senior in high school. I went off to college at UVA to study ecology, came back once again to the Arboretum to do a college internship for a summer, which was great fun, learned a lot about the place I work now, went off to get a couple other degrees in education. I love science, but my passion was sharing it with other people. So I student taught high school. I was an elementary school science teacher in Alexandria, Virginia for 5 years, went back to get a master's degree, moved back to the Cleveland area. And lo and behold, 28 years ago, I started working at Holden Arboretum, and I am still here. So I'm one of the people that's been around for a long time. And have a lot of knowledge, have seen the place grow up. So really excited to share my passion for it with you today. So I am going to go into a presentation, and hopefully I will do this correctly. Please, if I don't, somebody say so. So I'm going to share my screen and bring up. And so hopefully you all see a slide that says Holden Forest and Gardens. If you don't, somebody speak up. All right, so, and now I'm going to have to figure out how to advance it.
Everything is coming across perfectly.
All right, but now I've got this box on the side. Now I'm in this mode. Here we go. All right, so Holden Forest and Gardens. It's kind of interesting. People get a little confused depending upon how long you've been in the Cleveland area. We are still the same two campuses. We are comprised of the Holden Arboretum, which is in Kirtland, Ohio, about 3,600 acres. If I was in person, I would ask you all to raise your hand of who's been here, who hasn't been here. I'm assuming most of you have. If not, that's okay. So you'll learn a lot. Or sometimes I get, oh, I haven't been there in a long time. So the Holden Arboretum is in Kirtland, the Cleveland Botanical Garden, downtown. We're on Wade Oval, about 10 acres. And I'll get into this a little bit later, but both of these institutions started in the 30s, and approximately about 10 years ago, we merged into one institution. So that is what Holden Forest and Gardens is. Some people, when I go places, go, have you changed? I'm like, no, if you didn't really look at our moniker that is over the entire institution now, we don't really look any different. We have a different logo. We operate a little differently internally, which gives us more capacity to work with people, both in an urban area and in a more rural area, but we still, to the casual visitor, you wouldn't know that we're one institution now. But we do have a shared mission, which both of these institutions always had, which was Holden Forest and Gardens connects people, and people is key, to the wonder, beauty, and value of trees and plants, to inspire action for healthy communities. And that is what really our shared mission is about. And that was what enabled us to merge and really not change what we do, because we really did have a shared idea about where we wanted to go. So just for some numbers, this is interesting. When I go to the American Public Garden Association conference, which I'll be going to in Dallas next week, people in the Cleveland area are not really aware of how well thought of Holden Forest and Gardens is. We are the 12th largest public garden in the country. We have about 20,000 member households. This is as the combined institution. And we have about 310,000 in annual attendance. And that, again, is at both of the institutions. So just a little bit of history. I always find it kind of interesting. And now that I work at Holden, when I say Holden, I mean both institutions, they really have very interesting histories that are kind of run parallel. So just as an FYI, if you all were not aware, the Cleveland Botanical Garden actually started as the Garden Center of Greater Cleveland. It was started in 1930 by some very well-known philanthropic women that were members of the Garden Club of Cleveland. So Howell, Mather, Otis, Sherwin, White, these are names that in the Cleveland area are pretty well known. They started this. They started it in the old boathouse that no longer exists, that was in the Fine Arts Garden on the lagoon in front of the Art Museum. And so they started it as one of the nation's first civic garden centers. And they started it with Mrs. Squire's donation of horticultural books. A little later, you'll hear that that was the first library. Holden Forest and Gardens has 2 libraries, and the Squire Library is down at the Botanical Garden. So that was the beginning of the Cleveland Botanical Garden. About the same time, about 1 year later, the Holden Arboretum was founded by Albert Fairchild Holden. Liberty Holden, his father, owned the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Albert Fairchild Holden had a lot of interest in zinc mining, really spent a lot of time out west, very well-to-do family. He was married. He had 3 daughters. One of them, his daughter, Elizabeth, died at a very early age. She was 12. She died in 1908. His wife had already passed away at that time. So what he did because he found out later that he was ill. He eventually did die at the age of 46 in 1913 of cancer, we believe. He set up a trust, the Holden Trust, that would eventually establish the Holden Arboretum, but the Arboretum would not receive the money from the trust until his two remaining daughters lived out their life. So he established this trust with a fairly large amount of money, which eventually became the Holden Arboretum's endowment. But obviously, until the money came along, you had to start doing some things. So they tried to figure out where to put it. He originally wanted to put it in at Harvard with the Arnold Arboretum. His sister, Roberta Holden Bowl, whose husband was a professor, biology professor at Case, made the argument that Cleveland could use an arboretum too. You really didn't need to go all the way to Boston. So Roberta Holden Bowl gave the first 100 acres, which is the core of the current Holden Arboretum, to establish the first arboretum. They had thought about doing it down in Bracknell at the family's estate, which was called Catewood. No longer in the family. Catewood is still there. That really wasn't a good choice because of the ability to expand. They thought about doing it at Lakeview Cemetery in conjunction, I think, with Lakeview. Lakeview Cemetery had already been established at that time, but it was not the size that it currently is. They really thought because of the industrialization in downtown Cleveland that maybe that was not a wise choice. So they selected the 100 acres. Roberta Holden Bowl donated it, and the Arboretum was established in 1931. Again, Albert died in 46, not very long after that. And originally, the Holden Arboretum was overseen by the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. So both of these organizations have started. They've started small, very focused on plants and the improvement of the Cleveland area. So in 1952, these kind of things run concurrently. The Arboretum separated from the Cleveland Museum of Natural History and became its own nonprofit. At that point, we had grown to about 1,000 acres. Warren Corning, no relation to Corning Glass, a Cleveland family with a lot of established roots here, had a lot to do with expanding that. He had built his home lantern court on Kirtland Chardon Road at the edges of what is now the extent of the Arboretum. Membership, we started to have members, attendance began to grow. We still had a very, very small crew of people working, but trees take a while to grow, so you need to plant them for the future. Started to invest in some staff. Now in 1988, and this was after I did my senior project here, the Holden Trust actually became available to the Arboretum. So at that point, there were actually funds to draw on to expand even further, but that was not until 1988, although the Arboretum had been established in 1931. About the same time, concurrently again, in 1966, the Cleveland Botanical Garden, it was still at that point, the Garden Center of Greater Cleveland, moved from the boathouse because it kept flooding, not a great place for a library, over to what is now its position on Waite Oval, which used to be part of the original zoo before the zoo moved to its current location. It was renamed the Cleveland Botanical Garden, and further expansion in 2003, the glass houses that we now have down at the garden, the Eleanor Armstrong Smith glass houses, Madagascar and Costa Rica, were built in 2003. So again, expansion is going on down at the Cleveland Botanical Garden campus as well. We come to the 1990s, the Arboretum got its endowment in '88. Now they started to expand. We added a research component, research building, which is now called our Long Science Center, which is over on Mitchell's Mill, contiguous to the main Arboretum campus. Further expansion in 2015, after a large fundraising campaign and some very generous donations, we built the Caliber Emergent Tower and Canopy Walk. So if you've been out to the Arboretum, this picture actually shows the Emergent Tower. It's 220 feet above the ground. You can see Lake Erie when it's clear. From the top, it sways a little. A great addition to what we have here. And then in 2016, the Holden Arboretum and the Cleveland Botanical Garden formally joined forces, merged to become Holden Forest and Gardens. So just a little bit, if you're not aware about what it is we have to offer, and the difference too, people often ask, an arboretum basically focuses on woody plants, trees and shrubs, arbor, French word for tree. The botanical garden focuses more on perennials, but that is a fairly dated description of arboretums and botanical gardens. These days, they really do everything. The main focus is that arboretums are all outside. We do have some indoor space now at the botanical garden, but it's a museum. We are an accredited museum, which means we have a collection that we keep track of, just like the art museum has a collection. All of our plants, except in our forests and our natural areas, are accessioned, they're tagged, we know where they are, because to be a museum, you have to curate your collection. And both of our institutions really provide a place for people to learn about nature and plants. We do have a very large focus on conservation and preservation. And as I said, a large research department, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But again, it's also just a fun place to visit, and a lot of people are not aware of the other work that we do. So this is just some examples of some of our collections. Obviously, on the left-hand side, we have, that is our Costa Rican cloud forest down at the Botanical Garden. We have butterflies. The butterflies just came back. They are not native butterflies, obviously, so they come from South America and other places, but it is representative of what you would find in a Costa Rican cloud forest. The center picture is just one of our lilacs. They came into bloom. I left on vacation the second week in May, and they were just starting. And then on the right-hand side is our Leach Resource Station, which is all rhododendrons, which is out in Madison, Ohio. So we have a lot of different varieties of collections. And then we have a lot of what we refer to as attractions, I'll say. So, some of the big things that people really come out here and enjoy doing, besides walking all of the trails and just enjoying whatever is in bloom, is the Merch Canopy Walk. This is a picture of the Canopy Walk. If you've not been on it, it is three different bridges that look just like this. They do sway. They're about 65 feet above the forest floor. They go to different pedestals that you can stand on. Some people don't like it because it does sway. My father, I assure you, would never get on this thing, but it does give you a very different view because you're in the canopy, you're in the top of the trees. So it's a great way to have some excitement while we teach people about the wonder and beauty of plants. The Caliber Emergent Tower, I showed you in one of the last pictures. That's again 220 feet up. You can see Lake Erie from the top of it. It does sway. It's meant to sway. That's a great experience as well. But what's nice about that is it has different platforms. So depending upon, there is no elevator. People keep asking where the elevator is. There is no elevator, but there are platforms. So depending upon your health, your knees, your affinity for heights, you can go up different levels and then stop. I do find it interesting that when families come, there's always the family component where somebody doesn't want to go and the other family members think they should go. That never really works out well. But it's just quite interesting. We do have several children's play spaces. So Buckeye Buds Adventure Woods is at the Arboretum. It's outside. There's an outdoor theater. There's a couple little zip lines. There's a bird feeding station. You can dip in the water and look for frogs. So really outdoor activities that you would have had as a child, we're trying to recreate. The Hershey Children's Garden down the Botanical Garden was one of not the first children's garden in the United States. It's over 20 years old. It really was an example for a lot of other botanical gardens. We're redoing some of that right now, but it is a great space to take children down there. It is very active, lots of programming going on. We have programming at Buckeye Buds Adventure Woods as well. The children love the sandbox. They love to use the water pump. They love to water everything. There's a tree house. We have story times. So a lot going on at both locations for children. We do have 2 libraries that some people are not aware of. The Corning Library is at the Arboretum. The Squire Library is down at the Botanical Garden. Members can check out books. Obviously, they're horticultural libraries, so our focus is on what our content is. So plants, trees, some on wildlife, birds, how to propagate plants, orchids, rhododendrons, all those kinds of things. And you are welcome, if you're a member, to take out our books. At the Arboretum, we do have tram tours. There is a slight cost extra for those, and they go through the main display. We really wanted to make sure that we could educate everybody and share our experiences with everybody, even if mobility is an issue for some people. So tram tours are available. They're designed for adults, not children, although the kids always want to ride on the trams. Obviously, down at the Botanical Garden, the Costa Rican and Madagascar glass houses are open. Great thing about Costa Rica, there's a waterfall inside of it, a lot of birds, butterflies are everywhere. Madagascar, different, it's a spiny desert, it's dry. We have tortoises and other animals in there as well. And it's just a really unique, and chameleons in the glass house. And then the perennial play space, we only opened a year and a half ago. That is upstairs in the Botanical Garden, and is an indoor children's play space. And it has been very, very popular, even during non-inclement weather, but we do have winter in Cleveland. So we wanted to provide a space for children to come when it wasn't quite so, there's not quite as much going on outside. So just some major attractions. So just wanted to give you a little bit of an update or an overview of some of the work that we do that people may not be aware of. Obviously, I covered the fun things that you get to see when you come, but we do have a lot of education classes. We have a program called Green Corps, which exposes students to green careers. We do outreach into public libraries and schools. We have summer camps, we have libraries. We do about 25,000 school children a year on tours. So we really are trying to educate everybody from preschool through high school. We have programs with CASE students, the Cleveland Museum of Art students, the Cleveland Institute of Arts, students come over. And so a lot of outreach for what we do. Just a little bit about, since this is all about summer fun, some of the things that are coming up currently, if you want to come explore them. So down at the Botanical Garden, we just opened an exhibit called Bloom, Botanicals and Birdhouses. So I was just down there yesterday. And so we have tons of handmade birdhouses all around, along with a trail about the importance of birds and how to attract birds to your landscape. And we also have a huge hand-blown glass display. It's not Chihuly, but it's pretty amazing. It's from a group in Cleveland, and it's all on our terrace. Gigantic glass sculptures. Is really, really quite beautiful. So that's added to what, if you were to go down there. Years ago, before COVID, we had a popular program called Gourmets in the Garden. Those are going to start on June 15th. At the end of the presentation, I have the website. All this information is on the website, but different chefs come in outside on our terrace. There's a small tasting. They talk about what they do. So obviously there's alcohol if you want to purchase that as well. So that occurs now at the Botanical Garden. At the Arboretum, the Canopy Walk and Emergent Tower is open. It opened on April 1st. It will stay open until November 1st, weather dependent. So those are available, and that's included in your admission. Obviously, if you're a member, you don't pay admission. Nature Connects. So this picture on the right is a traveling exhibit. It's very popular. We had it a couple of years ago at the Botanical Garden. Sean Kenny's Nature Connects. They're made with Lego bricks, and we have 10 sculptures. Some of them are 4 or 5 feet tall throughout the garden. So obviously everybody loves Legos. And so that exhibit is up, and it will be up and through early September. Along with that, we're always trying something fun to do. You can come participate in something called Bricks and Brews. So have a beer and you get to make your own little Lego sculpture out of Lego bricks. So that's in July. And then we have had for several years concerts at the Arboretum. And so we are bringing those back, the first a series of them. I think they are on Wednesdays. I can't actually remember. But those start on June 14th through August. Tickets are available. We are also bringing back, and that's this coming weekend. I think this coming weekend, it is the 8th and 9th. So no, not this coming weekend, the weekend after. Apollo's Fire, if you're familiar with those, are doing a couple concerts at the Arboretum. And those dates, yeah, are June 9th and 11th. They came last year, it was very popular. So if you're a fan of Apollo's Fire, you can check that out. So lots going on. Just wanted to touch a little bit on the other things that we do. We have, people are not aware, we have a huge research department. Our research department is busting at the seams. I think we currently have between 10 and 15 PhD research scientists working on all kinds of things. Everything from mycorrhizal fungi, which are the fungi that live on the roots of trees that actually provide nutrients and break down for a healthy forest. We're looking into crab apples. So a lot of research going on with beech leaf disease, woolly adelgid, all those kinds of things that are threatening or impacting our native forests. We have a huge conservation department that's also looking to learn more about maintaining native biodiversity, how to control invasives, those kinds of topics. We also have a community forestry department that is really working at helping people understand the importance of trees in their neighborhood. One of those components is working woods, which used to be our old sugar bush. We've now turned into a stewardship information center because most of the forests in the state of Ohio are owned by private landowners in parcels of 5 to 10 acres. So obviously out in Hudson, in more rural areas like that, you all might be in that category. And so we're really trying to help those private landowners learn how to conserve and use their forest to maintain them in a healthy way. So lots of information through our Working Woods and the community forestry program. And then lastly, I wanted to touch a little bit on, we are really involved in the Cleveland Tree Coalition. So obviously most of you are probably aware that Cleveland used to be known, or sometimes is still known, as the Forest City. Not so much anymore because our forest canopy cover is declining. I think last time I looked at one point, and I didn't check these numbers before I got on here, I usually do because they don't stick in my brain, but our canopy cover was 30–40%. It is now down to about 18–19, and it continues to drop. Why is that? Well, obviously industrialization, building of infrastructure, roads, schools, all those things that we need as a community. But a lot of it too has been that there hasn't been enough work paid to replanting and maintaining as well. Because as we know, in any city, you have a budget, whether you're a small city or a big city. A lot of that gets spent on schools, police, fire, roads, trash collection, all important things. A lot of times, very little of it gets spent on trees. Now, places like the Arbor Day Foundation has worked with, Tree City USA and those things to get some communities to really focus on trees. So there are some communities that are very focused on this problem and have been and have the funds and put the importance of planting those trees because as we know, you have to plant for the future when you plant a tree. But a lot of the city of Cleveland, that number has continued to go down. So the Cleveland Tree Coalition was started several years ago. A lot of community organizations, the Arboretum, Western Reserve Land Conservancy, the Nature Conservancy, the city of Cleveland. The city of Cleveland has a tree plan and really has put a fair amount of money along with a lot of money from other nonprofits, from businesses, from other philanthropic sources, the Cleveland Foundation, to really support the work of getting more trees in the ground, and also to maintaining the trees that we have. Because what we know is that, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's fairly easy to put a tree in the ground. The importance is maintaining that tree after you put it in the ground. I don't know how many of you got a sapling at an Arbor Day event. And, depending upon, maybe it got in the ground, maybe it didn't, maybe it got mowed over, maybe it didn't, maybe it got mulched, maybe it didn't. But sometimes we don't spend enough time on the maintenance of them to make sure that they grow into a healthy tree. So we're doing a lot of work with a lot of these organizations. to increase. We have a goal to plant 15,000 trees by 2025. I think last time we checked, people have pledged, and people are pledging, and we don't know that they're actually putting them in the ground, but you know, we do some statistical analysis to figure out, you know, the percentage of them that are probably, and we think at this point 10,000 have been planted. That's just the Holden Arboretums and the Cleveland Botanical Gardens, Holden Forest and Gardens goal to do that. But if you want to be part of that, we have a lot of information. You can pledge to plant a tree and care for a tree to help us reforest Northeast Ohio. It's a big goal, and everybody can participate in that. So if you go to our website, we have lots of tree plantings. At Arbor Day, we gave away a lot of trees. We're working with lots of communities. A lot of communities have these programs on their own, which is great. It takes a village to get this work done. So you can, if you go to our website, there's a way to pledge to plant a tree to share this information with other people. And there's lots of information too about right tree, right place, proper planting techniques to help assure success. A little bit more information in case for those of you who are not aware, we just hired a new CEO. The announcement was made I think last week. Jill Koski, who was with us for 5 years, went back to the Morton Arboretum. She was a great leader. She helped us a lot through the merger and to get us focused on a lot of the work that we're doing. We were sad to see her go, but her family is from Chicago. And she was offered the job at the Morton Arboretum, which in the Arboretum world is another one of the big jobs that you would want. So it was hard to pass up. So we have been running well since her departure, but our new CEO will be Edward Moydell. He starts September 1st. He is coming from the Biodell Reserve, which is on Bainbridge Island, which is west of Seattle. Very well respected, has done a lot of great work. He has a great background. Worked a lot with the Longwood program out of the University of Delaware, which is known for creating a lot of really great botanical garden arboretum CEOs. So we're really excited. He's going to start on September 1st. For all the information about all the cool things that are going on, both at the Holden Arboretum and the Botanical Garden, the website, pretty easy to remember, www.holdenfg, the F is for forest, the G is for garden.org. And then my email, all of our emails are first initial, last name at holdenfg.org. So we'd be happy to answer any questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, hopefully. Hopefully I was successful, and happy to answer any questions or that you all might have.
Was really great. Thank you. It's Sharon, right?
Yes.
Sharon, Tom Tobin here. I don't know if that last name sounds familiar. Of course, the whole world revolves around me and my family, but one of my cousin, Judy Tobin, is the HR person for the Arboretum now. And I just wanted to relay their daughter, Eliza, who just graduated from Miami University and earned at the Botanical Garden for several years. I understand she just graduated, changed her degree from her major from whatever it was to botany. And we're so really happy, pleased to have a botanist in the family now. So good on you for whatever influence you provide. Member here in Hudson. I just want to let you know that we are working hard to accomplish a vision of creating a public school campus that is reflective of the things that you're discussing this morning. Working with one of your friends, well, I don't know if you're friends, but Hocking Hill graduate, Kurt Van Blarkum, who's been in the field for 45 years, a certified arborist, former arborist for the city of Hudson, groundskeeper for Western Reserve Academy, and he's working for the schools mostly now to help create a campus that is both beautiful, natural, more natural than just mowed turf, and is educational as well, so that we can educate our students about all these things. And I tell you, I mean, to make you feel a little bit better, we just planted about 15 trees recently. Ellsworth Hill. That's just a down payment on a much bigger nature trail project we're going to be doing over there. But, you know, that saying, that expression that I heard so many years ago about, maybe you can help me with it again, Sharon. What is it? The true demonstration of leadership is a person that plants a tree under whose shade he or she never hopes to sit. It's basically it's what we do now is going to have its impact in 20, 30, 40, 50 years and maybe even centuries.
Right.
Thank you so much for sharing with us this morning. We share your feelings about what you're doing, and maybe you can come on out and visit us sometime.
No, that sounds great. I mean, it's important to, you know, and I always remind people that, you know, where I work is gorgeous, you know, the whole Narberth and the Botanical Garden, but trees and plants are important to have, even if they're not in such a lovely space. They can be in small spaces. So any little thing that people do is important and adds to people's enjoyment of nature and the health that it brings to their communities.
Good morning. My name is Mimi Becker, and I'm an environmental scientist. But one of the things that a number of people have raised recently is being aware of those species of trees in particular that are probably not going to survive the changing environment and the diseases that are running around. And they're saying, well, what should I plant instead? And so I think there's a huge knowledge gap among people who are maybe working on their own lands or helping with other projects. And whatever sources of information they can access that are reliable would be very useful. And I know that many of them are interested in taking advantage of the conservation packets that Extension provides. And I don't know the extent to which those packets are responsible or responsive to our new realities in terms of species. So I don't know if you have access to how to do that, but it would be really helpful role. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. No, our community forestry department is spending a lot of time. And if you go to our website, and the easiest way to navigate our website is to go up to there's a search bar in the upper corner, and then just type in either recommended trees, native trees, climate change, because on our website, your point, it's a good point. Things are changing, not only because of diseases, so whether it's beech trees, whether it's elm trees, whether it's hemlock trees, there's always something coming around. It's just, you know, the current way things are. So not planting those, they're lovely trees, but, you know, you're just going to be fighting an uphill battle. But we do have a whole selection of suggested trees that are really going to be able to cross that zone so that you're planting trees that in 10, 15, 20, 30 years will still be able to survive, given that the climate is going to change. So yeah, and we do put very obviously, we want to be seen as a reputable source of information. We have scientists, we have the correct information. So Extension does as well, but we really are making sure that that information is on our website. And if you can't find it, just email me and I can make sure, but it is there if you use the search bar. Thanks, that was a great question.
I have a question. My name is Marilyn Orr, and my grandchildren are great fans of the Botanical Garden as well as the Arboretum. Can you tell us a little bit about the status of Stickworks? Now that was there a couple of years ago. Boy, did we have fun with that one. Can you tell us how it's doing now?
Well, so Stickworks is gone. It is not there anymore. So Stickworks, Patrick Doherty goes around the United States, and a lot of arboretums and botanical gardens have these huge, they're made out of willow. I think the one we had was, I don't know, it was 20 feet tall. Maybe it was 30, 40 feet wide. It had rooms in it. They're not meant to last for forever. So we had it for about a year and a half, almost 2. We dismantled it this past spring because it was starting to fall apart. Some institutions really just leave it there and let it fall apart totally naturally. But this one was probably going to be a little bit more difficult because at some point it becomes unsafe. At some point the willow starts to grow into the ground, and unless you really want willow trees there, so we actually dismantled it, so it's not there anymore.
Good morning, James Field. Oh, good morning. We had talked earlier, I'm the one whose wife went to UVA.
Oh, yeah.
Major. So very worthy. She's very proud. So my question, so 2 things. Really neat. But sort of piggybacking on Mimi's question, in terms of yards, expanses of cut grass are not for the environment, you know, for pollinators and for other things. And they've talked about the no mow, you know, not mowing, but apparently that's thing. So sort of 2 questions, you know, any in terms of things that one that than just having a big expanse of cut grass. And then also at the whole arboretum and gardens, is there any examples that people could see of things they could do with their yard?
Gotcha. That's interesting. I mean, you know, we had, I think, you know, our message is that native is good, you know, diversity is great. So that depending upon the size of your yard, you know, I don't think we necessarily take a stance that, you know, grass is bad, but it's not very diverse. So for instance, in our butterfly garden at the Arboretum, we are just putting up some new interpretation about the importance of butterfly gardens. And even though I consider myself a fairly well-educated person, I learned something the other day as we were working on this interpretation project with Lori Gogolin, who is the horticulturist in the butterfly garden. Because we took out a bunch of old signage, and one of it was about the importance of people planting pollinator gardens. And I said something offhand to her about, well, does that really help? If I go to my little yard and I plant a butterfly garden, how does that help? And she looked at me and she said, well, Sharon, you have to understand that. And after she explained it to me, I understood. I just wasn't thinking about it in this way. Just like birds, as we have created less natural areas, as we build up areas and we get rid of yards or vacant lots and things like that, we are taking away these places where butterflies will go to, and they need stopover points. So they don't necessarily, I mean, it's lovely to have 1,000 acres, but it really is important if people plant these little pockets in their yards. So you can landscape for birds by planting certain specific trees, depending upon what bird you're trying to attract that eat nuts or fruits. You can plant butterfly gardens that will offer the nectar for the adult butterflies or the host plant material that the caterpillars eat to become butterflies or moths. Also, there's lots of ants that are pollinators, and obviously pollinators are important for plant reproduction. If you think back to life cycle of plants that you took in 3rd grade, everybody, you know, you have to pollinate plants to get seeds so that there are more plants. So although we may be trying to attract butterflies, it really is for the importance of the plants to be able to reproduce. So sometimes, you know, she really made me more aware that I had forgotten that these little things that we do in our yards are important. And there is information. So for instance, on the Arboretum's website and the Botanical Gardens website about planting butterfly gardens or landscaping for birds. So, you know, I think there are always, and diversity is always better for everybody, because whether or not climate change comes and all you have in your yard are certain kinds of lilacs and they all don't survive, if you have various kinds of lilacs and a couple rhododendrons or a service berry, you know, you're going to have something left, even if something detrimental happens. So diversity is always better. So that's a great question. And I think one of the things we do try to show on site at our institutions are gardens that are planted with a diversity of plants. And then we have information on our website about how to do that. So that's a great question.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Gail. I am concerned about all the pesticides people are using. How do we negate the pesticides in order to let nature take over and have its way?
Right, right. We, you know, this is not something I know a whole lot about, but I do know that, that at the Arboretum and at the Botanical Garden, we are trying to walk the walk and talk the talk. So we are trying in lots of ways to change how we do things, to use less herbicides. In our greenhouses, we are using, instead of a lot of pesticides, we use other organic methods. I am not actually sure how much of that information is available on our website, but we are trying to be more proactive in doing that. And one of the things is, I think too, it's planting the right plant in the right area. But that's a great question. I'm not sure that we have publicly put out much information on that, but I will, I'll have to check. But that's a good question.
Well, thank you, Sharon. This has been a wonderful conversation, and we really appreciate you coming and joining us this morning, even if it was just remotely. Okay. So
Happy to
we're
do
about
it.
ready to call the end of our meeting. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
So Father Joe had a funeral this morning, and we are going deep in the weeds to find a previous president. So here I am from 2020. Okay, one chance to meet yet again with you live. Okay, we have one more thing to do, and that is our 50-50 drawing. It looks like we have a $9 payout and $246. So who is not in on this today? Is anyone not in on it today? Mimi, I'm going to let you draw. I am in on it, so let's see. Here we go. Where's the? Uh-oh, she threw one out. Oh my gosh. 923513. Well, it's not me. Who would it be? It is you. So it's James Field. All right, and where are the marbles? I think we've lost the marbles. They must be on. So here we go. I'm going to get in a few steps yet this morning. Don't do bad dad jokes, guys. I also don't have a story, a historical story to share. No inspirational message. I don't do sermons. I'm sorry. So here we go. There is a black one. Let's twirl it around. I'll bring it up a little higher. Let's see what we got. And no winner today. So the $246 carrying forward. And that will conclude our meeting for today. Thank you very much for coming. We'll see you next week.